I'm not yours, she told the vampire prince, then his eyes turned crimson. The grand ballroom of the Nightshade Court glittered with an otherworldly elegance that made Ilara's skin crawl. Crystal chandeliers refracted light into 1,000 bleeding rubies across marble floors, and the air hummed with a tension that had nothing to do with the orchestra playing in the corner. Vampires, beautiful, terrible, and ancient, moved through the crowd like predators draped in silk and diamonds. Ilara stood at the room's edge, her emerald dress feeling more like a costume than clothing. She didn't belong here. She shouldn't have been here. But when the vampire nobility sent an invitation sealed in blood-red wax, refusal meant death. You look like you're planning an escape route, a warm voice said beside her. She turned to find a young woman with copper hair and kind eyes, too kind for this place. That obvious. Only to someone doing the same thing, the woman extended her hand. I'm Myra, human tributary from the Eastern Province. Ilara shook it, grateful for an ally. Ilara, Western Province. I take it you also had no choice in attending. My village's annual donation. Myra's smile didn't reach her eyes. One girl, 1 year of service, one guarantee of protection. You. Similar arrangement. Ilara's jaw tightened. Though I wasn't supposed to be the one sent, my sister, she's only 15, I took her place. Before Myra could respond, the orchestra fell silent. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees, and every vampire in attendance turned toward the grand staircase, as if pulled by invisible strings. He descended like winter itself, taking human form. Prince Cashan of the Nightshade Court was nothing like the dark, brooding vampires of legend. His hair fell in waves of pure gold to his shoulders, catching the light like spun thread. His features were sharp and aristocratic, his skin pale as moonlight, and he moved with a grace that suggested violence held in perfect check. He wore black and silver, formal attire that probably cost more than Ilara's entire village earned in a year. But it was his eyes that captured her attention, a pale, ice blue that swept across the room with casual disinterest. Until they found her. Those eyes locked onto Ilara with sudden, startling intensity. She felt the weight of his gaze like a physical touch, and her breath caught despite herself. The prince paused mid-step, his expression shifting from boredom to something she couldn't quite read. Oh no, Myra whispered beside her. Oh, that's not good. What's wrong? He's looking at you. Prince Cashan never looks at anyone like that. Before Ilara could ask what that meant, the prince was moving again, directly toward her. The crowd parted like water, vampires stepping aside with barely concealed curiosity. Some of the human tributaries shot her looks of pity. Cashan stopped 3 feet away, and Ilara forced herself to meet his gaze. She wouldn't cower. She'd learned long ago that predators enjoyed fear too much to give them the satisfaction. You're new, he said. His voice was smooth, cultured, with an accent she couldn't place. Ancient, probably. I arrived this evening, Your Highness. She managed a stiff curtsy, mimicking what she'd seen others do. You're named. Ilara Thorned. Ilara, he said it like he was tasting wine, considering its vintage. You're trembling. I'm cold, a lie. The room was perfectly climate-controlled, but she'd be damned if she admitted he unnerved her. A slight smile curved his lips, revealing just the hint of fangs. Of course, how thoughtless of us keeping the ballroom so chilled. He extended his hand, palm up. Dance with me, it will warm you. It wasn't a request. Ilara glanced at his hand like it might bite her. Around them, the crowd had gone quiet, watching. Even the orchestra seemed to hold its breath. I don't know the steps, she said finally. I'll lead, you need only follow. The expectation hung heavy in the air. Everyone waited for her to accept, to simper and blush and feel honoured by his attention. That's what the tributary girls did, wasn't it? Grateful for any scrap of notice from their immortal masters. Something hot and defiant flared in Ilara's chest. No, thank you, Your Highness, she said clearly. I'd prefer not to. The silence that fell was absolute. Somewhere in the crowd, someone gasped. Myra made a small, strangled sound. Cashan's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those pale eyes. I'm sorry. I said no. Ilara kept her chin up, heart hammering. I'm here because my village's treaty requires it. I'll serve my year as agreed, but nowhere in that treaty does it say I must dance. For a long moment the prince simply stared at her. The air between them crackled with tension. Then, so quickly she almost missed it, his eyes flashed crimson, a deep, bloody red that swallowed the blue entirely before fading back. The orchestra started up again, jerky and nervous. Conversations resumed in hushed whispers, but Cashen didn't move. "How refreshing," he said softly, dangerously. "It's been 2 centuries since anyone refused me anything." "Then perhaps you were overdue for the experience." His laugh caught her off guard, genuine and surprised. "You're either extraordinarily brave or catastrophically foolish, Ilara Thorne." "I've been called both, Your Highness." "Cashen," he corrected. "If you're going to defy me, the least you can do is use my name." He leaned in slightly, close enough that she could feel the unnatural coolness radiating from his skin. "You should know that I have an excellent memory. I won't forget this." "Neither will I." He studied her for another heartbeat, then stepped back and offered a slight bow, mocking or respectful she couldn't tell. "Enjoy your evening, Miss Thorne. I suspect we'll be seeing much more of each other." Then he was gone, moving back into the crowd with that inhuman grace. The vampires around him immediately clamoured for his attention, but Ilara could have sworn she felt his gaze on her for the rest of the night. "Are you insane?" Myra grabbed her arm the moment they had relative privacy. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" "Probably signed my death warrant," Ilara admitted, her bravado finally cracking now that the adrenaline was fading. Her hands shook. "God, Myra, what was I thinking?" "I don't know, but—" Myra paused, glancing around nervously. "Look, I've been here for 6 months. I've learned things. Prince Cashen isn't like the other vampires. He's older, stronger, and more dangerous. But he's also bound by the old laws. He can't kill you without cause, not while you're under treaty protection." "That's reassuring, I suppose." "But Ilara," Myra's grip tightened, "the way he looked at you, the way his eyes changed, I've never seen that before." "What does it mean?" "I don't know, but in vampire culture, red eyes mean strong emotion. Anger, hunger, awe," she trailed off. "Or what?" "Or desire." The tributaries were housed in the west wing of the palace, luxurious by human standards, a gilded cage by any other measure. Ilara's room was larger than her family's entire cottage, complete with a canopied bed, private bath, and windows that overlooked gardens she suspected bloomed year-round through magical means. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw ice-blue irises bleeding to crimson, heard that dangerous, amused voice, "I won't forget this." What had possessed her to refuse him? Pride, stupidity, some self-destructive need to maintain dignity in a situation designed to strip it away. A soft knock at her door made her jump. She glanced at the ornate clock on the mantel, 3 in the morning. "Who is it?" she called, not opening the door. "A friend, or at least not an enemy." Cautiously, Ilara cracked the door open. A vampire stood in the hallway, young-looking, with dark skin and silver eyes that marked him as one of the court nobility. He wore simpler clothes than the ballroom finery, and his expression seemed genuinely apologetic. "My name is Dorian," he said quietly. "I'm Prince Cashen's cousin and occasionally his voice of reason. May I come in? What I have to say you'll want to hear in private." Every instinct screamed not to let a vampire into her room, but curiosity won out. Ilara stepped back, letting him enter but keeping her distance. Dorian moved to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "I'll be direct. You've caught my cousin's attention in a way I haven't seen in, well, perhaps ever, and that could be very good or very, very bad for you." He seemed angry. "He was delighted," Dorian corrected. "That's what concerns me. Cashen has lived for 500 years, Miss Thorne. Do you understand what that means? He's bored. Eternally, crushingly bored. Nothing surprises him, nothing challenges him. He goes through the motions of court life like an actor in a play he's performed 1,000 times. Until tonight." "Until you," Dorian turned to face her. "I saw his eyes flash red. That hasn't happened in decades. You awakened something in him, and vampires with awakened interest can be intense." Ilara wrapped her arms around herself. "What does he want from me?" "I don't know. I'm not sure he knows yet. But I wanted to warn you. Cashen isn't cruel by our standards, but he is a vampire prince. He's accustomed to getting what he wants. If he's decided you're interesting, he won't simply let you serve your year and leave. The treaty will protect you from physical harm, yes, but there are many ways to bind a person that have nothing to do with violence. Dorian's expression softened slightly. I'm not telling you this to frighten you. I'm telling you because you showed remarkable courage tonight, and I'd hate to see it crushed. Be careful around Cashen. Guard not just your life but your heart. He left as quietly as he'd come, leaving Elara alone with her racing thoughts. Guard your heart. She almost laughed, as if she could ever be foolish enough to feel anything for a vampire prince beyond healthy fear and resentment. As if those crimson eyes hadn't haunted her since the moment she'd seen them. As if she wasn't already in far more danger than she'd realized. Morning came too quickly. Elara was awakened by another knock, this one followed by servants entering with breakfast and a cream-coloured envelope sealed with the Nightshade crest. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Miss Thorne, your service assignment has been personally selected by Prince Cashen. You are to report to the Royal Library at 9 o'clock to begin duties as archival assistant. Attendance is mandatory. Is Steward Marcus? The library, Myra said when Elara showed her the letter over breakfast in the tributary common room. That's odd. Why? Most of us are assigned to cleaning, serving, or administrative tasks. The library is Prince Cashen's private domain. He spends hours there every day. Myra's eyes widened. Oh God, Elara, he's going to see you every day. Maybe it's a coincidence. Nothing is a coincidence here. Elara arrived at the library at precisely 9 o'clock, determined not to give Cashen any excuse to criticize her. The doors were massive, dark wood carved with intricate scenes of night skies and hunting parties. She pushed them open and stepped into a cathedral of knowledge. The library was stunning, 3 stories tall, with spiral staircases connecting levels, and every wall lined with books that ranged from leather-bound ancient tomes to modern volumes. Tall windows let in morning light that somehow felt softer here, less intrusive. The scent of old paper and ink hung in the air like incense. You're punctual, Cashen's voice came from above. She looked up to find him on the 2nd level, leaning against the railing with a book in hand. His golden hair was pulled back today, and he wore simpler clothes, still expensive but more scholar than prince. The letter said attendance was mandatory, Elara replied carefully. So it did. He set the book down and descended the stairs with that fluid grace. Tell me, Elara, can you read? She bristled at the assumption. Of course I can read. Multiple languages. Common tongue and Old Valyrian. My mother was a scholar before. She stopped herself. Before what? Before she married my father and moved to a village that had no use for scholars. Cashen studied her with those unsettling pale eyes. A scholar's daughter, how interesting. Can you write in a clear hand? Yes. Organize information systematically. Yes. Work in silence without constant supervision. Your Highness, I can do the job, whatever it is. Just tell me what you want. A slight smile. What I want is for you to help me catalogue the Eastern collection. 3,000 volumes, various languages and time periods, currently in complete disarray. The previous librarian died 40 years ago, and I haven't had time to reorganize properly. Elara blinked. That's actually a real job. What did you expect? For me to invent busywork just to torment you? He seemed amused. I have better things to do with my time, Miss Thorne. The library genuinely needs attention and you're apparently qualified to provide it. Consider it fortunate placement. And the fact that you spend hours here daily is coincidence. I never said that. Cashen gestured to a desk near the windows, already prepared with blank ledgers, ink and quills. You'll work there. I'll be available if you have questions about any volumes. We begin now. The first day was strange. Elara had expected continued confrontation, some game of cat and mouse. Instead, Cashen largely left her alone. He worked at his own desk, reading or occasionally making notes, while she began the painstaking process of examining and cataloguing books. It should have been peaceful, would have been if she didn't feel hyper-aware of his presence. Every slight movement he made, every page he turned, seemed magnified in the library's quiet. Around midday, she came across a volume in a language she didn't recognize. Beautiful, flowing script that seemed almost alive on the page. "What is this?" she asked before she could stop herself. Cashin looked up. "Bring it here." She hesitated, then carried the book to his desk. He examined it, careful not to let their fingers touch as he took it from her. "Old Elvish," he said. "Pre-war era, this is quite rare." He opened it, scanning the contents. Poetry, mostly. Love sonnets written during the Spring Court's golden age. "You can read Elvish." "I can read 17 languages, Miss Thorne. You live long enough, you pick up skills." He glanced at her, something almost playful in his expression. "Would you like me to translate one?" Yes, actually." He selected a page, cleared his throat softly and began to read. Ilara didn't understand the Elvish words, but his voice transformed them into music, lyrical and haunting. When he finished, he translated. "I have loved you across 1,000 dawns, each sunrise a reminder that my heart beats only at your command. Take this immortal life and make it meaningful, for without you, eternity is merely a beautiful prison." Silence hung between them. Ilara's throat felt tight. "That's sad." Most immortal love poems are. When you cannot die, loss becomes more profound. Cashin closed the book gently. The poet who wrote this watched his human lover age and pass away. He wrote this collection across her lifetime, then walked into the sun 3 days after her funeral. "Elves can die from sunlight." "No, but they can choose to fade, to will themselves out of existence. It takes extraordinary grief or extraordinary determination." He handed the book back to her. "Mark this one for the special collection. It's too valuable for general cataloguing." As Ilara returned to her desk, she found herself disturbed by the story. The idea of loving someone so deeply that their loss made eternity unbearable, it was romantic and terrible in equal measure. She caught Cashin watching her, his expression unreadable. "Why did you assign me here?" she asked suddenly. "Really?" "I told you." "The library needs organization, yes, but there must be others qualified. Why me specifically?" Cashin leaned back in his chair, considering her. "You defied me, Ilara. In 500 years, do you know how many humans have looked me in the eye and refused me something?" "How many?" "Including you, 1. He stood, moving to the window. "Everyone else either fears me too much or wants something from me too badly. They say yes before I finish asking. They anticipate my desires and fulfill them before I'm aware I have them. It's efficient and utterly soulless." "So this is punishment, forcing proximity with the uppity human who said no." "No," he said quietly. "This is curiosity. I want to understand what made you different, what made you brave or foolish enough to refuse a vampire prince in his own court." Ilara's pulse quickened. "And then what, when you've satisfied your curiosity?" "I don't know." He turned to face her and his eyes were that pale, icy blue, no hint of crimson. "I haven't thought that far ahead. Novel, isn't it?" The days developed a rhythm. Ilara arrived at 9, worked until late afternoon, cataloguing and organizing while Cashin read, wrote correspondence, or occasionally engaged her in conversation. He was, not what she expected. Yes, there was always that undercurrent of danger, the reminder that he was a predator wearing a gentleman's face. But he was also wickedly intelligent, surprisingly funny, and genuinely passionate about literature and history. "This is propaganda," Ilara said on the 5th day, holding up a volume titled The Great Reconciliation, How Vampires Saved Humanity. Cashin laughed from his desk. "Blatant propaganda, yes, written by Duke Varin to justify the treaty systems. Notice how it fails to mention that vampires caused most of the problems they supposedly saved humans from." "You're admitting that." "I'm 500 years old, Ilara. I was there for the war. I know exactly what my people did." His expression darkened. "Acknowledging ugly history doesn't change it, but it's better than the alternative." "Which is believing our own lies." She studied him, this complicated creature of contradictions. "You're not what I expected a vampire prince to be." "No, what did you expect?" "Someone cruel, heartless, drunk on power." "I've been all those things at various points." He met her gaze steadily. I'm not claiming to be good, Ilara. I've lived centuries. I've killed, manipulated, and done things that would horrify you. But I've also had time to recognize patterns, to see where cruelty leads. It's tedious, mostly. Kindness is far more interesting. Kindness, she echoed. Is that what this is? Would you prefer cruelty? I'd prefer honesty. Honestly, Cashin rose, moving toward her with that predatory grace. Honestly, I find myself thinking about you at odd hours, wondering what you're doing, what you're thinking, replaying that moment at the ball when you looked at me with such defiant fire. It's been a very long time since anything has captivated my attention this way, and I'm not entirely sure what to do about it. Ilara's heart hammered, but she held her ground. I'm not some puzzle for you to solve. I'm not entertainment. No, he agreed, stopping a few feet away. You're not. You're a woman of courage and intelligence who deserves better than to be a treaty sacrifice. And yet here we are. Here we are, she whispered. Tell me something. His voice dropped lower. When you look at me, what do you see? The honest answer rose to her lips before she could stop it. Someone lonely. Someone who's lived so long that everything has started to blur together. Someone who's terrified of feeling anything real because it might actually hurt. Cashin's eyes flashed crimson, just for a second, just enough for her to catch it. You see too much, he said roughly. You asked. So I did. He turned away, shoulders tight. You should leave early today. I find I need solitude. Ilara gathered her things but paused at the door. Cashin. He didn't turn. Yes. For what it's worth, I think you're capable of more than you give yourself credit for. She left before he could respond, but she could have sworn she heard him say something as the door closed. It sounded like, "That's what frightens me." That night Dorian appeared at her door again. He's falling for you, the vampire said without preamble. Faster and harder than I've ever seen him fall for anyone. It's reckless and dangerous and wonderful, and I don't know whether to encourage it or try to stop it. Ilara sat heavily on her bed. I'm human, I'll age and die while he stays young forever. There's no future there. Isn't there? Dorian's silver eyes gleamed. There are ways, Ilara, ways for a human to become something more. You mean turning into a vampire? I mean choosing eternity if it's offered, if it's wanted. It's been 2 weeks, Ilara said shakily. 2 weeks of conversation in a library. That's not love. That's not enough to give up my humanity. No, Dorian agreed. It's not, but it might become enough given time. I'm simply suggesting you consider what you want, because Cashin will offer eventually. He won't be able to help himself, and when he does, you should know your answer. After he left, Ilara lay awake for hours, wrestling with thoughts she didn't want to have. Because the truth, the terrifying, exhilarating truth, was that she looked forward to her library days. To Cashin's rare smiles, his unexpected humour, the way he listened to her opinions like they mattered, the way he saw her not as a tribute or a human or beneath him, but as an equal worth knowing. And God help her, she was starting to care for him too. Everything changed on a Tuesday. Ilara had been at the Nightshade Court for exactly 1 month. She'd fallen into her routine, mornings in the library with Cashin, afternoons free to explore the grounds or spend time with Myra and the other tributaries, evenings reading in her room. It was strange how quickly the extraordinary became ordinary. She was cataloguing a series of historical texts when Cashin said, I need to show you something. He led her to a section of the library she hadn't explored yet, a locked room behind a bookshelf that swung outward like a door. Inside was a smaller, more intimate space lined with personal journals and photograph albums. This is my private collection, Cashin explained. Memories from the past 5 centuries. I've never shown it to anyone except family. Why show me? Because you asked what I was like, the cruel, heartless prince you expected, and I thought, perhaps you should see him. He pulled out a journal dated 200 years prior and opened it to a random page. Ilara read entries written in elegant script detailing political manipulations, casual cruelties, a hunting party where humans were the prey. Her stomach turned. This was you. This was me, Cashin confirmed quietly. For a very long time I forgot that humans were people. You lived such short lives and I lived forever. It was easy to see you as ephemeral, meaningless. What changed? He pulled out another journal, this one more recent. Her name was Adelaide, a human servant in the palace about 70 years ago. She challenged me much like you did, less confrontationally but with the same underlying steel. I became fascinated. We became friends, strange as that sounds. Ilara saw entries detailing conversations, debates, even what looked like jokes shared between them. What happened to her? She aged, I stayed young. For 30 years I watched her grow old, and I understood for the first time what mortality meant. That every moment with her was precious because there were a finite number of them. Cashin's voice was heavy. She died at 63, surrounded by her children and grandchildren. I was there. She held my hand and told me not to waste my eternity on bitterness. Did you love her? Not romantically, but deeply, yes. She was my friend when I didn't think I was capable of friendship. He closed the journal carefully. After she died, I promised myself I would try to be better, to remember that humans matter, that your brief lives burn brighter because they're brief. It's a promise I don't always keep, but I try. Ilara's eyes strung with unexpected tears. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm falling in love with you, Cashin said simply. And you deserve to know who you'd be falling for if you chose to fall at all. The monster I was, the man I'm trying to be, all of it. The world seemed to tilt. Ilara gripped the edge of a shelf, steadying herself. Cashin. I know, it's impossible. You're human, I'm vampire. You have 11 months left on your treaty, then you're free to go. Anything between us is doomed from the start. He stepped closer, his pale eyes intense. And yet I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop wanting to know everything, your favorite color, what makes you laugh, what you dream about at night. I want to hear your opinions on every book in this library. I want to debate philosophy at midnight, and watch you prove me wrong with that brilliant mind of yours. This is insane, Ilara whispered. Completely. I'm going to age, die, you'll stay young forever. I know. Then what's the point? Her voice cracked. What's the point of starting something that can only end in loss? Cashin reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face gently. His skin was cool against hers, but his touch was tender. The point is that Adelaide was right. Wasting eternity on fear is the real tragedy. I have lived for 5 centuries, Ilara. I'll live for centuries more. And I would rather have whatever time you'll give me, even if it's only 11 months, than spend another 200 years without knowing what it's like to love you. A tear slipped down her cheek. I'm not yours, she said, echoing that first night. I won't be owned or claimed or controlled. I know, he said softly. That's why I love you. His eyes bled to crimson as he leaned in, and this time Ilara understood what it meant. Not anger, not even desire, though she saw that there too. It was vulnerability. Raw, honest emotion from a creature who'd spent centuries keeping himself carefully controlled. May I kiss you? He whispered. Instead of answering, she closed the distance between them. The kiss was soft at first, questioning, then deeper as she threaded her fingers through his golden hair, and he pulled her closer. He was cool and warm at once, gentle and passionate, and Ilara felt like she was falling from a great height with no idea where she'd land. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, well, she was breathing hard. He didn't actually need to breathe. Cashin rested his forehead against hers. I don't know how this works, Ilara admitted. I don't know what happens next. Neither do I, novel, isn't it? She laughed despite herself. You're enjoying this, the uncertainty. I'm terrified, he corrected. But yes, also enjoying it. Feeling this much after so long is extraordinary. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the private room, sharing stories. Cashin told her about his childhood. Yes, vampires had childhoods. He'd been turned at 25 after a battlefield injury. She told him about her village, her sister, the mother who'd died when she was 12. They traded favorite books and argued about poetry, and somewhere in the middle of it, Ilara realized she'd made a decision. She was going to let herself love him. However impossible, however doomed, she was going to take this chance. The next few weeks were the happiest Ilara had ever known. She and Cashin were discreet. Relationships between vampires and tributaries weren't forbidden, exactly, but they attracted attention neither wanted. In public, they maintained professional distance. In the library, behind closed doors, they were simply themselves. Read to me, she asked one evening, curled in a chair while he browsed the shelves. Any preference? Something with a happy ending. Cashin pulled down a volume and settled into the chair opposite her. He read for an hour, a story about a knight and a dragon who became unlikely friends, and Ilara found herself watching him more than listening to the words. The way expression played across his usually careful features, the way his eyes warmed when he glanced up and caught her staring. What? He asked, amused. I'm memorizing you. Why? Because someday I'll be old and my memory will fade, and I want to remember exactly how you look right now. His expression turned serious. Ilara, there's another option, you know there is. She did, they danced around it for weeks now, turning. It's your choice, always your choice. But if you chose to become a vampire, we could have eternity instead of decades. I'd have to die first, wouldn't I? That's how it works. A kind of death, yes, the transition is difficult, painful, not everyone survives it. Cashin set the book aside. I would never pressure you, your mortality is not a flaw to be fixed, but I want you to know the option exists. Can I think about it? You can take all the time you need. But time, as it turned out, was something they didn't have. The attack came on a moonless night. Ilara was asleep when the explosion rocked the palace. She jolted awake, disoriented, as alarms shrieked through the halls. Myra burst into her room without knocking. We have to go now. What's happening? Rebellion, human insurgents breached the walls. They're trying to kill the vampire nobles. Myra grabbed Ilara's arm. They don't care that we're human too. Anyone in the palace is a target. We need to reach the safe rooms. They ran through corridors filled with smoke and chaos. Vampires and humans fled in all directions. Somewhere Ilara heard fighting, steel on steel, screams cut short. Her only thought was, Cashin. I have to find him, she said, pulling away from Myra. Are you insane? He's a vampire prince. He can take care of himself. I have to know he's safe. She ran toward the library, following instinct and desperation. The doors were open and inside. Carnage. 3 insurgents lay dead or dying, their blood staining the beautiful floors. And Cashin stood in the center of it all, eyes blazing crimson, fangs extended, looking every inch the predator she'd sometimes forgotten he was. He saw her and his expression shifted from rage to fear. Ilara, get out of here, it's not safe. One of the insurgents wasn't quite dead. With the last of his strength, he raised a crossbow, aiming at Cashin's back. Ilara didn't think, she just moved. The bolt meant for Cashin's heart caught her in the chest instead. The pain was immediate and absolute. She heard Cashin roar, an inhuman sound of fury and grief, and then she was falling. He caught her before she hit the ground, cradling her with impossible gentleness. No, Ilara, stay with me. His hands pressed against the wound, but she could feel the blood pulsing out. Too much, too fast. Stupid, she gasped. That was so stupid. Why did you do that? Why? His voice broke. Because I love you. It was suddenly very important that he know. I love you, Cashin. I love you too. God, Ilara, I love you so much. Tears streaked down his face, blood tears she noticed distantly. Vampires cried blood. Stay with me, please. Hurts. I know, darling. He stopped, realization crossing his face. There's a way, one way, but you have to choose, you have to say yes. She understood what he was offering. Turn me. The transition might not work if you're this injured. The odds. Do it, Ilara interrupted. I choose you, I choose us, I want eternity, Cashin, with you. Are you sure? Never been more sure of anything. Her vision was starting to blur, but you should probably hurry. He didn't waste time. Cashin bit his own wrist, then brought it to her lips. Drink as much as you can. His blood was strange, copper and ice and something else, something electric. It burned going down, but she drank until he pulled away. Then he lowered his head to her throat, and she felt his fangs pierce her skin. There should have been pain, but there was only cold. Spreading from the bite through her whole body like slipping into frozen water, her heartbeat slowed, once, twice. Stopped. The world went dark. Awakening was agony. Ilara's body felt like it was tearing itself apart and rebuilding simultaneously. Every nerve was on fire. She tried to scream but couldn't draw breath. Didn't need breath, she realized dimly. Strong, cool hands held her. Cashin's voice murmured in her ear, anchoring her. I'm here, I've got you, you're safe, just let it happen. It could have been hours or days. Time had no meaning in the pain, but eventually, gradually, it faded. The fire became warmth, then settled into a new baseline. Ilara opened her eyes. The world was different, sharper. She could see individual dust motes in the air, count the threads in the sheets beneath her. She could hear heartbeats from rooms away. She was in Cashin's private chambers, she realized. And she could smell everything, old books, blood, Cashin's particular scent of winter and ink. Cashin himself sat beside the bed, golden hair disheveled, still wearing blood-stained clothes. He looked exhausted and hopeful and terrified. Ilara, can you hear me? Yes, her voice sounded different, clearer. Is it done, am I? Vampire, yes, a cautious smile. You survived the transition, you've been unconscious for 3 days. She sat up, testing this new body. Everything felt stronger, more coordinated. The rebellion. Crushed, the insurgents were a small faction, fanatics who thought they could spark a larger uprising. They were wrong. Cashin's expression darkened. Several people died, but the palace is secure now. And my sister, my village. Safe, I sent word that you'd been killed in the attack. Your sister won't be called to fulfill the treaty, I made sure of it. As far as your village knows, you died a hero. Ilara processed that. Her old life gone, but she'd chosen this. I'm dead. In a way. But I'm here with you. For as long as you want to be. She reached out, taking his hand. His skin no longer felt cool to her, they were the same temperature now. Forever then, I want forever with you. Cashin pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was infinitely precious. I don't deserve you. Probably not, she agreed, smiling against his shoulder. But you're stuck with me anyway. He laughed, the sound filled with relief and joy. I love you. I will love you for the next 1,000 years and every year after that. I love you too. They stayed like that for a long moment, two immortals at the beginning of eternity. Then Cashin pulled back, his pale eyes serious. I should warn you, being a vampire isn't easy. There will be challenges, adjustments you'll need to feed to learn control, and there are political complications. A turned human becoming involved with a prince, there will be opposition. I told you once that I'm not yours, Ilara said. That's still true, I belong to myself first and always, but I choose to share my life with you, my very, very long life. His eyes flashed crimson, that telltale sign of deep emotion she'd learned to read. Then we face the challenges together. Together, she agreed. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And Ilara thought about that elvish poem from weeks ago, about making eternity meaningful. She understood it now. Forever was only a beautiful prison if you faced it alone, but forever with someone you loved. That was just enough time. She'd been right to be frightened, not of him but of the intensity of what they'd found together. Love like this was terrifying. It was also absolutely worth it. Ready to find your own eternity? Follow for more stories where love defies the impossible. If you want to watch the full extended stories, join my Patreon. The link is in the description below. Exclusive and uncensored episodes are available only on Patreon. Check the link in the description.